Hello everyone, my name is Rukman Singh Rathore. I am a professional speaker, a distinguished Toastmaster, and winner of several international speech contests. And in this video, we are going to talk about one of the most common fears that we all have. There is a saying that the second most common fear is the fear of death. Number one is the fear of public speaking. So let's try and understand, why are we all so afraid of public speaking? What is so daunting about holding a mic and speaking in front of an audience? So we are going to break the fear of public speaking down to three different types of fears. Number one is the fear of unknown. Have you been in a situation where you are backstage and it's your turn to speak next and go on the stage, speak in front of an audience? Have you been in a situation where you are in the classroom giving a group presentation and it's your turn to speak next, your turn to present rest of the slides? Have you been in a situation where you need to present the annual report in front of senior leadership and you can feel your heartbeat racing? You're sweating, even though the AC is on. You're so nervous to speak in front of the audience. Why? Because you have fear of unknown. What's going to happen next? What if I fail? What if the audience is not very supportive? What if I forget my speech? There are so many thoughts that's coming to your head. And that's fine. We all have been in that situation. But here is what you need to do. Number one, do not rehearse your speech at least 3 hours before you deliver your speech. You see, when you are practicing our speeches, there's a plateau that we can reach. And after that, no matter how much you practice, you're not really improving your speech. So if you have practiced your speech enough and you are able to speak flawlessly for 5 to 6 attempts, you have reached that plateau. Now you don't need to practice anymore. Stop practicing at least 3 hours before you deliver your speech, because what happens in that case is you're constantly thinking about your speech, you're constantly worrying about your speech, and that's only going to make you more nervous. Instead, you need to distract yourself, do something else, play a game on your phone, talk to a friend, anything but think about your speech. The next thing that you need to do is fake confidence. This is what I used to do when I started public speaking. I would go to the washroom, in front of the mirror, I would give myself pep talk. I've got this. This is easy. This is cakewalk for you. Come on. It's so easy. You can do it. That fake confidence would actually lead to you being confident on the stage. It actually works. So try it out the next time you're speaking in front of an audience. The second type of fear is the fear of audience and the fear of judgment. When you're having a one-on-one conversation with your friend or you're speaking to a family member, are you frightened? Are you nervous? You're not. What about speaking in front of 4 to 5 friends? Are you scared now? I'm assuming that you're not. So why are you so afraid to speak in front of 30 to 40 people? And that is because of lack of familiarity. When you're speaking to a friend or a family member, you know that you can fail, you can be yourself. But in front of an unfamiliar audience, you become very conscious. You're conscious about every word that you say because you feel that you are being judged, you are being watched. Remember one thing, through my public speaking experience, one thing that I have learned is that in 99% of the cases, the audience is very supportive and encouraging. Even if you fumble, even if you make a mistake, the audience is not going to react negatively. In fact, you might get a positive reaction. You might hear the audience say, "Come on, you have got this, don't worry, woo, let's do this." Only in 1% cases where, let's say, you're a stand-up comedian speaking in front of a drunk audience, only then you might be discouraged. But in most cases, 99% of the time, I've seen the audience being very supportive even if you fumble and forget. So don't worry about that. Look at audience as your friends, where you can fail, where you can speak, because ultimately public speaking is a conversation between you and many others. So look at it from that lens only. The third type of fear is the fear of forgetting your speech. What to do when you forget your speech? We all have been in that situation. It has affected the best of us. We all have forgotten our speech some or the other time. And what you need to do in such a situation is, first, It depends a lot on how you write your speech. You see, we are so used to rote learning, remembering every word as it is, that even when we are writing our speech, we are writing each and every word to word, and then we try to memorize the speech. The best way to write a speech is to not write one at all. I have never written a speech. I only write bullet points and then I try to elaborate those points on the stage. Because when you write your speech word to word, you're doing two things. Firstly, you're limiting yourself to the script of the speech. You're leaving no room for improvisation. Shouldn't do that. Second, you're unnecessarily becoming more conscious about forgetting your speech. You're adding unnecessary stress, right? So don't do that. Don't write your speech word to word. Write points and elaborate those points on the stage. And this is something that comes with practice. The second thing that you need to remember is that even if you've forgotten your speech, nobody in the audience knows, because apart from you, nobody knows the original script of the speech. So even if you skip a couple of lines, that's totally fine. Nobody from the audience is going to point it out and say, hey, you have forgotten that line. All right. So it's fine. It's fine to improvise. It's fine to skip a few lines because nobody knows the original script but you. And in an unfortunate event where you have forgotten your speech, how do you bounce back from that situation? Here is what you need to do. The audience does not know that you have forgotten your speech unless you tell them that you have forgotten your speech. And there are clear ways of telling it to the audience. Let me show you through an example. Let's assume that the line that we have to say is, I was in MG Road waiting at the bus stand. I looked to my left and I saw my college dean, Dr. Mehta. That's the line. Example 1, where you're telling the audience that you have forgotten your speech. I was in MG Road waiting at the bus stand. I was in MG Road waiting at the bus stand. I looked to my left and I saw my college dean, Dr. Mehta. Example 1. Now let's look at example 2, where you're not letting the audience know that you have forgotten your speech. I was in MG Road waiting at the bus stand. I looked to my left and I saw my college dean, Dr. Mehta. Let's look at one more example. I was in MG Road waiting at the bus stand. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever been in a situation where something happens to you when you least expect it? I looked to my left and I saw my college dean, Dr. Mehta. You saw all the examples. Now in example 1, I was clearly telling the audience that I have forgotten my speech. How was I doing that? First, change of facial expressions. When you look nervous, oh, what do I do now? Those facial expressions clearly give it away. Second is repeating the last line. When you do that, it's an indicator that you have forgotten the next line. Unless it's an intentional repetition. The third one is when you're trying to think in front of the audience. What was the next line? When you do that, you're clearly telling the audience that you have forgotten your speech. In some cases, I've also seen people clearly tell the audience by actually telling the audience, I'm sorry, I've forgotten my speech. I've seen people do that. Don't do that. Instead, do these two things. First, take a long pause. If you want, you can smile a bit. Take a long pause. Look at the audience from left to right or right to left. It easily gives you about 5 to 6 seconds to think about the next line that you had to say. When you take a long pause, the audience thinks that it's intentional, especially if you're smiling. When you do that, the audience thinks it's an intentional long pause. They have no clue that you have forgotten your speech. And you can use that time to think about the next line. An advanced version would be to improvise and ask the audience a question. If the script allows you to do that, if there's that amount of flexibility in your script. Because in that case, what you're doing is you're also engaging with the audience and getting them involved to the speech. And you can use that time to think about the next line. So here are these tips and tricks that you can use to cope up with the fear of public speaking. Let's do a quick revision. Number one, fear of unknown. Number two is the fear of audience and judgment. Number three is the fear of forgetting your speech. Here are things that you need to remember. Fake confidence. Do not over rehearse your speech. Do not write your speech word to word. Use improvisation and long pauses when you have forgotten your speech. You also need to not be afraid of the audience and look at audience as your friends. These are 5 tips you need to remember. I hope these tips help you for your next speeches. See you in the next video.